Welcome to Conservative Voices Talking Points. I'm here with Gentry Collins, Eric Branstad, Rob Mudd. Thank you for joining us. I got a question for all three of you. Gentry is going to be on the national aspect, Eric, the state of Iowa, Rob on media. What does the political future look like for those that embrace critical race theory versus those who don't, right? So from a national standpoint, obviously that's going to be a little different from Iowa, but from a national standpoint, Gentry?
I think from the national standpoint, that this conversation is driving some of the realignment that's happening, ideological and partisan realignment that's happening in the country. You know, Iowa is a good example of this, right? We had been a state that I think in 2 decades presidentially only went Republican, and 3 decades only went Republican once. And that time was 2004 by a fraction of a percentage point. For the 20 years before that and for the 8 years after, we were Democratic every time at the presidential level. And then all of a sudden along comes Donald Trump and he wins by about 10 points.
9.1 and 8.3.
9.1 and 8.3, says the expert. I think that there's a lot of the rest of the country that looks like that. I think Ohio is moving that way. I think parts of Pennsylvania are moving that way. I think other parts of the upper Midwest may be moving that way. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the Southwest, which is maybe demographically a little bit different. But I think that there's a big wide swath of the country that, particularly in the industrial Midwest, it's true in the agricultural Midwest as well, that have not only not felt privilege in their working lifetimes, but in too many cases haven't even felt economic security, right? And have really wholesale, to their credit, bought into the idea that has finally come of age in the last few decades, that we really are all created equal, right? And that in many important ways our diversity can be our strength. And now they're being told by critical race theorists that what defines their existence is their white privilege, and that what defines the country's existence is that its foundation on slavery, not its foundation on throwing off tyranny, right? So you're talking about constituencies that had traditionally been, your FDR Democrat types, white working class Americans who reject racism out of hand, who at the same time know that not only is their life not defined by white privilege, but many of them, what is the statistic, Rob? You may remember better than I. I think it's roughly a third of the American population could afford an unexpected bill of $1,000 in cash, right? A very small percentage now. And to go to those people and say now that you are the problem with the country, I think will backfire on the people who are purveyors of this evil ideology. I think they will call us increasingly hateful names on their way down, but I think it will go down. I think the American people will reject this ideology, and I think that it will be people in the middle of the socioeconomic spectrum who will drive that rejection.
All right. Pinpoint that to Iowa, Eric, if you would.
I think when talking about Iowa, and we've certainly seen this, we've seen our urban and rural divide in several different ways, especially through the pandemic. You've got the urban schools, that have wanted to shut down and enforce the mask mandates to a different degree than the rest of rural Iowa. And then you have you can take that, certainly past masks, but you can when it comes to critical race theory, I think when we saw our legislature this last session act, it was because these folks are cover all of Iowa, not just these, not just the east and west coast, and not just, eastern Iowa used to be the Democrat part of the state, and western Iowa the conservative part of the state, and middle, kind of the middle. We've seen a much more rural-urban divide, and I'm really studying that and wanting to digest that so that we can be that much more successful in the future as conservatives. But I think we need to really, the legislature acted on what the Iowa people wanted, and their voices and their votes and their decisions showed at the Capitol.
All right. This next topic I'll start.